This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. Another Tuesday edition of C2C at Night coming at you live in San Diego, California on this Tuesday evening, August 20th, 2024. As always, folks, Callan and McClurg, yours truly, joining you here in studio here in San Diego. We will be joined momentarily by our good man, James Gonzales, who is taking care of some last-minute technical difficulties here on this Tuesday evening. We are, as always, folks, glad to have you folks aboard here this evening as we do, in fact, bring on our good man, James Gonzales from Oceanside, California. Big game, James. I know it's been hot. I know that the work schedule has not been cooperating, my man, but good to see you, man. How's it going tonight?
Somebody doesn't want me to do this show. I'm convinced. I keep getting kicked out of the StreamYard. I keep getting back in, having to log in. Let's see how long this lasts tonight. I'm interested to see this and other topics.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. James is kind of going through that weird phase right now where you don't use your computer for a while, and it kicks you out of every single, your email, your social media platforms, your bank account, and obviously StreamYard. And so James has been kind of fighting that bug for the last couple of minutes here. But of course, folks, C2C at Night live on the air on this Tuesday. Again, myself and James Gonzales recapping all the big sports news in a late night sports talk show format here. So if you're viewing us live at just after 10:30 in the evening Pacific time here, again, we had to make that change to accommodate James's Tuesday night work schedule here tonight. But if you are still, in fact, up late and you want to get your thoughts out on the sports world again, questions, comments, concerns, fire away if you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or on the Callan Max Sports Twitch channel here this evening. With that in mind, big game, James, we are now, my man, entering the dog days of summer and entering, my man, probably the best time of the year if you're a baseball fan. The wild card races are heating up in both the American and National League here this evening. And of course, James, it's been wild in the National League. The American League probably not as climatic as the National League as we do. In fact, James, take a look at those standings live on screen. This literally, James, was updated about half an hour before we came on the air this evening. And there's been some flip-flopping up top. The Yankees have now dropped back into the American League's #1 wild card spot. The Twins, who are now tied for that second spot with the Royals after losing to San Diego in very tough fashion for the Twinkies tonight, while the Royals are now 70-56. And then some of the teams who are still kind of nearby, but not quite fully, nearby at this rate of those top three spots. So, James, right now, it's either going to be Baltimore and New York 1-2 in the American League. Probably right now at this rate, Minnesota, Kansas City is as number 2 or even third. But, James, you got Boston hanging around. The Mariners did, in fact, lose, so now they are officially 64-63 on the season. And then everyone else is still kind of in striking distance, but not prime striking distance. So, James, as it stands right now on August 20th, right now we've got this battle in the American League East. We have a very intriguing matchup with the American League Central. Seattle trying to hang on to being close in first place in the American League West and trying to hang on with Boston in front of them. So, James, right now, out of where things stand, who would you be keeping your eyes on right now in the American League wildcard race here on August 20th?
Okay, I think everything will stay the same way it goes. My only concern is Kansas City, of course. They have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up. I mean, they really, really do. I think they face the Twins again, the Yankees, the Guardians. I was trying to remember whom else they face, but I think the Yankees, like I mentioned, but it's all really good teams. It's really good over 500 plus 500 people they face, and that's like the next 5 series after this Angels series they're having. So they got to take care of business in order to keep Boston away. Just something about Boston lately, their bullpen, even with getting some help, still they get hit. But the problem was always the pitching. So I think it'll stay the same way. Seattle is it's funny. They get a Rosarena. J-Rod comes back, and they're just not hitting. And then, like you saw tonight against the Dodgers, they give up the big home run, Munoz to Hayward. The Dodgers win by 3. Excuse me. So I can imagine Seattle taking over Boston, but still being too far back. Although there is 2 months to go, so or month and a half, I should say. But
few weeks.
Yeah, I think everything's going to stay the same. I think Kansas City holds on to that, and it was amazing to think because the amount of losses they have right now was the amount of wins they had last year, 56. So I'm so amazed. I'm so happy for them. Same with Minnesota. I don't think anybody knew what they were going to be this year.
Talk about a team, though, James, who's just been crushed by the injury bug.
That's true, too. And then for Cleveland to be in first, I know everybody probably came in before the season, the predictions for the AL Central, we're only going to get one team in the division. Winner will be in the playoffs. Well, guess what? I was wrong. There's 3 in there right now. I think it's going to stay like this, Callan.
Yeah, the American League is probably not as drama-filled, James, as the National League. I do believe it's going to be the loser of the American League East will get that top spot, either the Yankees, right. Baltimore. They've been so close all year. It kind of feels like, in a little bit, James, reminds me a lot of that 96 season in the National League West where it was San Diego, then L.A., San Diego, L.A., and they kept flip-flopping every other time you turned around. So I think it'll be Baltimore and New York as that top seed. I want to still say Minnesota is the 2 spot. I do think, though, that I believe KC has enough to leapfrog them. And I do kind of think that Boston might be able to sneak in, but it depends, though, on if anyone gets healthy sometime soon. The Mariners, I think they're starting to fade away, James Sally.
Mm-hmm.
You hate to say that, though, for a team who went out and spent and got Randy Arozarena out of Tampa Bay because of Julio Rodriguez jarring his ankle about 2 weeks ago, or roughly around the trade deadline. They bring him in, but then the bullpen has been floundering. Andres Munoz has been somewhat, in a way, come back to life over the past couple of innings, including, as you alluded to earlier on Tuesday night, where, again, protecting a 3-2 lead and cannot do so. I'm amazed Tampa's even at 500, James, with them selling off all their big pieces.
Yeah.
And I will probably say, James, I'm a little surprised that Detroit's been kind of still near 500 with them kind of, again, going through what they've gone through. So many, they've had injuries. They've had to, keep calling guys up. I think, James, the 2 teams that stick out, though, in my mind that are on this in the top 10 for the wild card are teams 8 and 9, who I think we all agree had high expectations, but Texas has been crushed by injuries. Toronto has not gotten a lot of offensive production this season. James, outside of the top 4 teams, which teams are you probably more surprised at that are right now at where they're at right now? The Tigers, the Rays, or is it maybe, as you and I have said a lot, man, the Blue Jays and the Rangers who've just been crushed by injuries and just by poor offensive production?
It's Toronto, because everybody expected them to compete for the AL East crown, or at least get a wild card spot. And, right away out of the gate, it was their offense having issues. And then their starters had a horrible ERA. The same with the bullpen. I think they have the worst bullpen, I want to say, in the majors, or at least their numbers come close to it. And when you have all 3 of those things, plus the offense not working, you're going to have those problems. And they kind of dealt away some pieces, but not the big pieces. But it was always them as the big disappointments for sure. So Toronto there. Texas has been banged up all year long.
World Series hangover on top of it.
You throw that in there. It started with Jung, though, being injured. And you knew from there, even though they have Josh Smith, Evan Carter has played down to where he was in the postseason last year. Wyatt Langford has been up and down. So that's been unfortunate for Texas. But you feel like they can come back next year and be good. The question is for Toronto. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're trying to do. But they're going to keep Bouchette and Guerrero Jr. and just try to ride it out. But they're really in a funk right now. They're going to have a new manager probably next year. I think Snyder's gone. So, yeah, Toronto's the big disappointment in that whole list. And shout out to Oakland, too, for not being in last right now.
James, do you also believe that maybe Ross Atkins's job is on the line as well in Toronto? Yes or no?
That's tough. Ooh, I think they're going to try to let him ride it out with the Guerrero Jr. If they lose him, then I would think he would be gone. As Atkins would be gone as well. Maybe see how this offseason goes, and then it'd be the next offseason to see if they get rid of him. But you can say they've really failed with this core of pieces after the last core. Maybe he's on the hot seat, but I don't think he's going to be fired just yet.
I agree. My good man Brent DeMoss writes in, he believes the Red Sox slip in ahead of Kansas City or the second best American League Central team. Only 3.5 back, Brent, so I kind of like your thoughts there on this. James, what do you think you would say to Brent, though, about why you believe, from his perspective, why would you believe Boston makes it into the postseason?
Well, they score more than 5 or 6 runs a game. I think that's how you do it. And you somehow get the critical saves and the key starting pitching performances. You know, Bello has to be good, and the others they have in that rotation, it's really unknown. That's the only way. If they can outslug the other teams that they play, I think they can get in.
Yeah, I think it would be that, and I would also think, James, it would have to be one of these AL Central clubs in front of them finally fading away. And part of me would think that'd be KC. Again, they're a young team still, and they don't quite have that experience yet of a meaningful September baseball. But I think Boston can catch either of those two teams if one of them kind of starts to kind of come back to the pack here pretty soon.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be fun to see. I think Kansas City, that's one thing. You look at them and you say maybe they don't know what they're going to go through with that gauntlet of a schedule. They're
Right.
so young maybe that they're like, hey, we're just going to play our style. And all they do is slug. I mean, they're really a great team to watch, a fun team to watch. They put pressure on you on the base pass. They play really good defense. But yeah, we'll just have to see after a couple of weeks how they come out of this. And then maybe Boston will make their headway. And maybe it'll be a real tight, maybe 1 game, 2 game. Boston will gain some games from this. We'll see.
So, James, from the American League to the senior circuit in the National League, where, James, 2 teams on the heels of the LA Dodgers continue to fight it out for the top wild card spot. The San Diego Padres winning another come-from-behind victory on Tuesday, now with a 4-game advantage over the Atlanta Braves right now for the top spot in the wild card standings, followed closely by the Diamondbacks, who are 71-56. They're 3 up on Atlanta, who now occupies that 3rd spot, while the Mets have dropped out of that spot. They're now 65-61, 2.5 games behind Atlanta for 3rd place in the wild card standings. The Giants kind of coming on here as of late. 2 games or 2 more losses than the Mets. They're now 3.5 back. The Cubs hanging around 5.5 back. So, James, 1 through 9, it's still only single digits right now for games back from 3 to 9 right now. But, James, I think Pittsburgh's done. There's talk that they will probably shut down Paul Skeens pretty soon. The Reds, not quite there yet still. Cardinals, much improved from this season. They did, though, dump Brandon Crawford over the course of the day today. The Cubs have also kind of fallen off. The Giants are close. I don't know, though, they have enough in that lineup. And other than Webb and Snell, that rotation does not scare me at all. And then the Mets, they've been hot, cold, and they've been, pretty much cold for a majority of the season. Then, James, Atlanta, they have been just also absolutely hammered by injuries. They lose Austin Riley on Sunday. He's out 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured hand. They had to pick up Gio Urshela to fill that void at third base. Then, James, those top two teams are the two teams responsible for the Dodgers' early exits the past two seasons in both 23 and 22. The Padres are on a franchise. I mean, they're on a just right now magical run right now that has not been seen by people like myself who have been a Padre fan their whole lives of this like torrid 23, 24 and 4 or 24 and 6 all post All-Star break record. And them in Arizona have been chasing each other on top of chasing down the Dodgers. Both teams a game separated in the standings. So, James, what sticks out in your mind so far as you look across the top 10 of the NL wildcard race?
Well, first, let me mention about Brandon Crawford. It seems like he was always on the bench. They were going with the rookie. I'm forgetting the name, but Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn. They were going with the rookie at shortstop. So Crawford was only there, on day games and pinch hitting. So it was weird to see him, first of all, in another uniform.
Agreed.
Other from the Giants. So it was weird to see him somewhere else. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get picked up by the end of this week by someone out there just for that postseason experience. Let's just talk about the top, with the Padres and Diamondbacks. I mean, that has been fun to watch both teams ascend from, being 3.5, 4.5 back of the third wild card spot. And look at them now, right at the top in a matter of probably a month or so. I mean, these probably, are the two hottest teams in baseball, along with others, but they've been a lot of fun to watch. You just knew Arizona, they would try to capture some magic from, last year and do it. The Padres, you figure, they have a lineup so talented and getting so many young kids, contributing to the team offensively and pitching wise. Profar's been amazing, like he did tonight. Merrill just been amazing. Hopefully he'll get Rookie of the Year. But man, that third spot, I got to watch the Braves on Friday against the Angels, and man, they're so up and down. And right now they've been down with all the injuries. They have a laundry list of them, with Fareed.
Putting it lightly.
And you go with Albies, you go with Acuna Jr. Right there, you talk about those three guys, you should be out of things. And Austin Riley too. That's so unfortunate to happen to him. It was like that's the last thing you need is anyone like that in the lineup to get injured. And basically, all you have is Asuna and Olsen, and that's enough to get you a wild card. But if one of those guys go down, they'll be out of it. And just getting what they've got from Chris Sale this year has been amazing. I got to watch him. Well, not watch him, but I watched him on TV, of course. And he looks rejuvenated. He looks like the Sale from 2018-17. Last two starts have been amazing for the Braves. Him and Ronaldo Lopez, who, man, I wish the Angels had. But those two have been saviors for the Braves. And without them, they're in that St. Louis, Cincinnati spot right now. I think it was. I can't wait to see when the Braves play the Mets and see how it really comes out of this. I mean, the Mets being in this, it's really good to see. I don't know if it will last. They're barely getting enough offense to score. It took a walk-off yesterday by Francisco Alvarez, in which he really hits a home run, and he finally hit a home run and had a pimp job about it, from what I heard. But I expect things to stay the same. I think the Braves hold on to that third wild card spot. They've made some moves at the before the deadline to get the help. It would be cool if if the Mets somehow got in, but I don't think they will. But it's not as entertaining, I don't think, as the AL. But at least it's a little bit closer here. I don't trust any of those central teams to make it in for sure. And even the Giants, I don't think they score enough. like you mentioned. The Cubs don't scare you. The Cardinals, even though they had a good 2 months, they're starting to fade. And I would say the most disappointing team would be the Reds, banking off from last year and what you were hoping they would be. Hunter Green has been hurt for them, and they're not scoring as much despite having De La Cruz in India and all those other young guys. Maybe David Bell's on the hot seat, even though they extended him. But I was hoping Cincinnati would have, been where at least where the Mets are. And then the Pirates, as fun as it was, maybe next year they really ascend. But, Skeens has been great. But, again, I hope Miro gets that Rookie of the Year award. Nats were fun at the beginning of the year, but, eventually, cream rises to the top and then everybody else drops. So I think it stays the way it looks, Callan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to celebrate too early or solidify a San Diego playoff spot yet, because as I've said, James, I've seen this movie play out in 2010. But with how San Diego's playing though in this, refuse to lose, kind of circa 95 Mariners, making up all that ground against, California in 95 to win the division title in that one game playoff. It does definitely feel different this year. And I mainly, James, look at it though, about how it's been San Diego, Arizona now kind of putting pressure on LA. But I also, though, James, just look about how close of a race this is with mainly, I would probably say only right now that maybe the Mets and the Giants have a legitimate shot to catch Atlanta for that third wild card spot. I think the Cubs are just too far behind the 8 ball. St. Louis is also too far behind the 8 ball. I think if you get beyond 6 games back, that feels like it's a pretty big Herculean task having to leapfrog, 3-4 teams getting into the playoff spot. I agree, though, that I think my biggest disappointment in this group of teams, James, I would probably go with you with the Reds. They kind of got close last year. They were kind of on the fringe. De La Cruz burst onto the scene, but then they kind of faded away here recently. I thought the Pirates would be a little bit better this year. They showed some flashes of promise, but then they came out here on their West Coast swing, James, and they got buzzsawed by the Dodgers and by the Padres. And I do think that Skeens is going to get shut down if in fact they get 10 games under 500, 15 games under, that they're going to shut him down to save him for next season. But I think, though, James, that we're going to still see San Diego and Arizona flip-flopping, because my man Brent DeMoss has a great point, though, that not just Arizona has a tough schedule ahead of them, James. The final week of the regular season, Padres go to Los Angeles for 3 games and end the year in Phoenix against the Diamondbacks, where I have long said, James, I do feel like this could be that 96 season all over again, where there's going to be something on the line in LA or in Phoenix. Someone's going to get the division title, and the other 2 teams grab a wild card spot at that stage of a season. James, would you agree at this rate with how close the NL West kind of is right now, and with those top 2 teams really putting more and more pressure on the Dodgers?
That's so perfect the way the schedule is come about at the end right there with the last 2 series for San Diego and everyone else. It's pretty cool to see. But I think everything stays the same. I think despite the Dodgers, with all their pitching injuries, I think they've used 36 different pitchers this year, I want to say.
I mean, do you want to talk about a laundry list of pitchers? My goodness.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was until Monday when someone mentioned that. And
yeah,
still the offense is hitting. Despite Shohei, having a bad batting average.
Freddie Freeman playing through a fractured finger right now, too.
That shows guts. I mean, everything he's been through this year already. And then the play, I was kind of shocked when I saw him tonight. I was like, wait, didn't he have a fractured finger? Why is he out there? He should take
I read the reports
from off.
Fox he was going to play through it. Are you crazy?
Maybe he's what do you call it? He's battle tested this year, with the son coming back from what he had and the rehab from that. So I think he's seen the worst, and he's just going to play through what he can. And Again, that shows a lot of guts, but I think the Dodgers still end up winning the West, and then the wild cards stay the same as it is. But I would love for a scenario the last 2 weeks where everybody is either one game or two games within each other.
Half game or tied.
That would be fun going down to Sunday, in which everybody plays
At
at
the
the
same
same time
time.
at noon, I think.
12-10, I believe everybody's supposed to play.
Yeah, that would be fun if you had Arizona and San Diego playing, and that would be more interesting than any NFL game, I would think, that day, or at least I would have watched the baseball game.
And I would feel like, too, that if, say, the Dodgers win the division title, but then Arizona and San Diego are fighting for the breadcrumbs of the wild card, that, James, like, that final game could dictate who gets home field, like, 2 days later to kick off the wild card series.
That there's importance wherever that is, that's for sure. And because it's a series now, the wild card series.
Yeah, and the
that's
wild
all
card's 2 out of
important.
3.
Yeah, that's still important. How do you feel about the wild card series? Do you wish it still was one game, or do you like the best out of 3?
I actually like the best 2 out of 3, and I also like the incentive that if you're the 4 seed, you get home field for all 3 games of the series, along with if you're the third best division winner, you also get home field. Like, that's a really huge advantage. Now, obviously, the Mets didn't take advantage of that against the Padres in 2022, and
Mm-hmm.
neither did Milwaukee playing Arizona last
Yep.
season, or even Tampa Bay playing Texas. Like, I actually like that wrinkle because it does add a little bit more drama to, like, now James, it doesn't hinge on one game or game 163. Now it hinges on best 2 out of 3. I like that wrinkle that they did, though, with that 6-team format.
I guess it's gonna grow on me. I was just so disappointed with the Rays last year. I mean, first of all, the crowds that came out because it was during the day, and then with the Rangers, you didn't know how they were gonna perform, and they just killed
They
them.
got hot at the right time.
Same thing with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it helps those young teams, or those teams that are, maybe not the favorites. It helps those teams the way the format is, like you mentioned.
Brent's also saying he's got the Pods snagging the division and having LA and Arizona meeting up in the wild card. And he does have the Bravos holding on to that final wild card spot. I do think, James, though, that the NL West will be probably the most intriguing race once we get into September, because I think that the AL Central is still kind of intriguing. Again, Cleveland got the Twins beat up by injuries, Royals, young team. Maybe the AL East is probably an intriguing race, though, too, with, Baltimore one day, New York one day. They keep flip-flopping from the division lead to the wild card lead. The NL Central is over. NL East is probably over. James, with those 3 races, the NL West, the American League Central, and AL East, which race in your mind is most compelling here on this Tuesday night?
Well, the media won't tell you that because
Obviously
they're
not.
East Coast biased. But yeah, the NL West, all the stars are out here. People are going to have to stay up back east to watch these games, and I hope they do. The star power is not only there, but it's out here. So yeah, I think just because where we are, and that the race is this close after it wasn't, I really like this because eventually, New York, Baltimore, something's got to give. I hope Baltimore wins that. And then with the Central, you figure all 3 teams will get in anyway. But all those 3 teams are younger and maybe not have the star power. But I'm looking forward to the NL West, the way it ends.
I do think not even NL West fan bias, but, just, James, you've seen it. Any baseball fan seen it. You've seen how out of control that GB stat usually is around August 20th every year, minus this year, when it comes to who's the second best team, who's the third best team, because 9 times out of 10, the Dodgers, they would have a 15, 20 game lead already built on the rest of the NL West division. And now here we are, James, with like I said, the 2 teams who are responsible for the Dodgers' early exits in both 2022 and 23, now are keeping pace with the big bad boys in blue in Los Angeles. That is, kind of in a way must-see TV. I would probably then go the AL East and AL Central.
I do like I do like what the AL Central has, though. What was it? Last week I was watching a couple of the games between the Royals and the Twins in Minnesota, and Rose took 2 out of 3. They won 4 straight coming into today, but lost to the Angels. But I'm just interested to see how much Bobby Witt can carry the Royals and see if they can keep him in the race. So that'd be another thing. And just if the Orioles can continue to do what they've been doing all year long, that would be fun too. But yeah, I'm looking at the NOS for that.
NOS for sure is on the radar. With that, James, staying in baseball, but another day, James, another potential rule change coming to Major League Baseball, maybe as soon as next year, but there's been no solid talk yet. But as of last week, ESPN.com's MLB beat writer Jesse Rogers dropped a pretty interesting bombshell that Major League Baseball, James, might be talking about a 6-inning minimum starting pitching requirement to keep or bring back the quote-unquote prestige of the starting pitcher, with fans who would be able to tune in to a game knowing that he would be on the mound for a high majority of this game. The league does acknowledge that adding such a rule like this would not be as simple as forcing every starter to pitch at least 6 innings every time out, but some exceptions would be included. The main objective, per Jesse Rogers' reporting, is to prioritize starting pitching, not to leave a struggling starter in to reach the innings threshold while his ERA skyrockets or risk injury. The league's conversations have included carve-outs, instances when pitchers would not have to pitch the required 6 innings. Some of these instances when a starter could be allowed to leave the game early includes throwing 100 or more pitches, giving up 4 or more earned runs, or he gets injured, but he would have to go on the IL to avoid manipulation of this new potential rule. Outside of these 3 exceptions, pitchers would have a mandate to make it through at least 6 innings, which would force teams to rethink their pitching staffs to meet the new major league standards. So, James, we have already talked about tinkering the game as is in 2023 with the rule changes for the pitch clock, the bigger bases. They made the runner's lane a little bit bigger for this season. We're talking about robo-umps and the ABS pretty soon. Now, James, this weird curveball, pun intended, being thrown now by the front office of Major League Baseball to now try to put a minimum number of innings a starter can go, which is 6 innings, starting sometime maybe soon. Now, James, don't think that you can make this a thing right away. So my dad, James, has been coaching baseball in San Diego since 1990. And he's been a pitching coach his whole career and a lead assistant on varsity staffs at 3 or 4 different high schools here in town. So when I was reading this story and he kept stopping me and saying, there's no way you can force this on these teams all of a sudden to make this a rule. Now you could probably say it might be about the whole thing of, it's about trying to limit pitching injuries. Even then, I think it's more about the fact, James, that these guys like Ben Joyce just throw 106 miles an hour, and it's just hard for them not to, everyone, James, and my dad said this, though, a lot of pitching coaches just want velocity. They don't want Greg Maddux out there throwing and painting the corners or Jamie Moyer out there at 57 years old pitching to contact. They want guys like Ben Joyce, Mason Miller, Robert Suarez, you name them, to throw 107 miles an hour and blow out their arms like that. Again, look at, we talked, James, in the last segment about the Dodgers and their pitching woes. Like 37 different pitchers have been used because half these guys, James, are falling on UCL injuries and Tommy John surgeries. So, James, what is your stance right now on what Major League Baseball is proposing? And I think, James, you and I agree, this is not going to go over well if this does in fact become a rule in Major League Baseball sometime soon.
I like how it sounds because I grew up from an age where starting pitchers would go 6 or 7 or 8 innings.
Or throw a complete game.
And I think we've only had a handful of complete games this year. But it comes down to, are we babying the pitcher's arms? Because, starting pitchers are only going 4 innings, if that. It'll help the bullpens out if this ever happened too. You can have a 7, 8, 9 guy for the innings, but that's the old way. The new way, like you mentioned, to blow guys' arms out. I just wish we could find like a happy medium with pitchers and how to control them in a way. I would say even after 5 innings, if this rule would happen, but I know the players won't go for it. The pitchers won't go for it because it would put more on them. And they never like changing anything anyway for them, where they have to work harder in a way. So I don't think this rule will work out. I don't think it will be agreed upon, but I would like it. The only thing is, I don't think the newer pitchers would like it. But it'd be a nice throwback to yesteryear. And then you look at the ERAs, of the pitchers, it would skyrocket for those starters. That would be the issue there. I think the long relievers would not have a place in the game too when it comes down to this. So it would hurt some things as well. It hurt others. But I do like the 4, giving up 4 runs or more, and you can kick them out. Take them out. And then the injury thing, man, it would be good to have that in there where you have to put them on the IL. But I think some pitchers will get away with it somehow. Some teams would, Yeah, I was listening about this morning, but I just don't see it happening. I don't think the pitchers would like it very much. And, they're being controlled so much to throw a sweeper. I think that's been hurting the pitcher's arms, trying to learn a new pitch, putting more force on their elbows. That's why you're getting more injuries, I think. And, but I think I'm different on this because I want to see starters go longer. I don't want them on pitch counts. I just want gut feelings back in, management and less analytics. I think this is a ploy for MLB to go after analytics to make this rule happen, but I don't think it's going to happen, Callan.
I don't see it either, James. And I would agree, though, if I'm a pitcher, I would be like absolutely fuming. Like, I look at it this way from this perspective. You've already, in a way, added to our plate by having us have a pitch clock. That's, I think, the main culprit of why guys have gotten hurt. That's one part of it. Second part, James, you're right. Velocity and learning new pitches, adding more strain on the elbow, more strain on the forearm on top of the pitch clock. Those are the main 2 culprits, I think, James, what you just said. I don't see this rule going further. And I think, James, there would be a mutiny among players in the game where you just said you're basically wiping out the long reliever if a guy, comes, if he has to come in for, muck-up duty after it's 8-0 after 3 innings of play, basically, in some roundabout way. Now, I will say, James, that Brent, now him and I worked together during our Little League summers. Brent's one of our volunteer umpires at various Little Leagues I work at down here in San Diego. And Brent says, I personally don't agree with this rule. It's bad enough in travel ball where young kids are throwing over 100 pitches in very few innings. I see this all the time in young kids, where I think, James, that's why Little League has got it right. If you throw over, and Brent, you and I can attest to this, if you throw over 8, different thresholds of pitch counts, you have to sit out a minimum of a day, 2 days. I think the max, I believe, Brent, is 5 if you throw over 85 pitches. Now, James, I will say, though, and I agree with you, I don't want to go that route of like forcing pitch counts on pitchers. I would say if you do this rule, make him go 5. Isn't that the minimum to get the W? Make it 5, not 6. How about that? You're on mute, buddy.
I always hate when you have starters being taken out and the team has the lead. Your team has the lead, and they get taken out in the fifth inning with one out. I saw that recently somewhere.
Joe Musgrove on
And
Sunday, maybe for the Pods against
well,
Colorado.
I wasn't watching it, so I don't know if that
Now,
it had to be before that.
to be fair though, that was his second start back after he's had the bone spur problem for the last several months.
Right. I don't remember who it was, but that team ended up winning the game. Like it had the lead all the way through. So, and I know Joe Madden with the Angels, that was always the thing that pissed off the starters. Would always take them out with like 4 2/3 innings or 4. They would go 4 innings, whatever, just because the pitch count was up around 75. Wouldn't let them try to work in that fifth inning. And these are all young arms they had, or arms that were in the minors coming up, and never gave them a chance. Never gave them a chance to get a win. So again, this might help starters, try to get wins, and wins equal, when it's time to get a new contract or arbitration. More wins is better for your case or your free agent status. So that's another way I look at it. If the rule went through, is it'll help starters that are trying to get paid. So it'd be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind it, but I just want to see pitchers work more. I think that would be cool. But again, I don't think the Players Association, Players Union is gonna like this and vote for this.
Yeah, no way. I think that this would drop dead on the desk of Tony Clark and the Players Association and Players Union. I think mainly, James, like I said, though, it just kind of feels like that we're singling out the pitcher all of a sudden in Major League Baseball by, like I said, we've added this pitch clock. We have added the number of times they can disengage the rubber to throw over to first base or take a breather. We have limited the number of times that the catcher can go out, the infielders can go and talk to the pitcher, the pitching coach, you name it. Now, all of a sudden, we want to now say, well, now we're forcing you to throw 6 innings minimum unless you go, give up, 5 earned runs or you come out with an injury, but you have to go on the 10-day IL to not manipulate that rule. I just think, James, that we're forcing pitchers into a box all of a sudden based off of pace of play, based off of analytics ruining the sport, and that the numbers are kind of in a way factoring into this. And I really think, James, that this will probably not go any further after these reports have come out over the past couple days.
Yeah, I mean, you can still do it in the video game, but not in real life.
Yeah, without a doubt. But again, folks, Major League Baseball right now toying with the idea of a potential 6-inning minimum for a starting pitcher to, per their reports, bring back the prestige of the starting pitcher. Kind of in a way, give me a break. Let's just move on to the NFL, James. As we inch closer to the start of the NFL regular season, a very interesting story, James, and report that had come out over, I'd say, the past 24, 48 hours. But we have a response now from current Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, who, James, really took a very different tone we're probably used to hearing towards his former quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, with the Miami Dolphins, one day after a publication of a Dan Le Batard interview done with Tua called Flores a quote-unquote terrible person. But in a very interesting response made in a 17-minute press conference in Eagan, Minnesota, Flores began his comments by saying, "I'm genuinely happy for the success that Tua has had, and I really am wishing him nothing but the best." Now, we all remember here that Flores was the Dolphins head coach during Tua's first 2 years in Miami between 20 and 2021, but was fired in January of 2022 amid ongoing speculation that his relationship with Tua had become strained. The interview took place on Monday with the Dan Le Batard Show, where Tagovailoa compared his former coach to current Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, with a lengthy quote that reads, "If you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you do, you don't belong doing what you do, and that you should not be here, that this guy should be here, that you have not earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this, how would you feel, or how would it make you feel listening to one or the other?" Flores gave his response on Tuesday by speaking about Tagovailoa for much of a previously scheduled news conference that went over 17 minutes. Vikings safety Josh Metellus and defensive lineman Harrison Phillips flanked Flores as he began speaking, a show of support that Flores said meant a lot. Now, here's where things get very interesting about this whole fray flow or this whole entire somewhat banter here. Flores, whose voice was shaking at times, seemed to acknowledge that his coaching style might not have hit well with some players in Miami and indicated that he has worked to improve over the ensuing 3 seasons. He further says in depth, I think part of coaching is correcting. I'm always going to correct and going to have a high standard. And I think, look, I've done a lot of reflecting on the situation in communication, and I think there's things I could do better for sure. And I've grown in that way, and I've tried to apply the things that I could do better and the things that I've learned over the past 2 to 3 years. He further then said, look, I'm human. So that hit me in a way that wasn't positive for me, speaking of the commentary by Tua. But at the same time, he said, I've got to use that and say, how can I grow from that? And how can I be better? That's really where I'm at from that standpoint. Do I feel like that's me? No. But how can I grow from that situation and create a world where that's not the case that's not the case that anyone says that about Brian Flores, open and close quote. He was further asked, though, if in fact what the first meeting would be between them when the Dolphins and Vikings not playing in the regular season. He said, maybe if that time arises or is available, I am certainly open to that, but there's a lot going on. And as he does, open and close quote. And James, I say that about like a very interesting response because, James, how many times have we seen this sort of thing blow up into becoming nuclear warfare, where it becomes a full-fledged, he said this, he said this, screw him, he sucks, where it gets, James, really out of control, via social media, the newspaper, radio, and the podcast. But, James, here's a guy in Brian Flores, as we know, though, James, was also, I believe, is still suing the NFL for, discrimination regarding his firing from the Dolphins. And, we talked backstage before he came on the air about Stephen Ross, the owner, telling him, you will tank games for $100,000 in incentives. But, James, how often, though, does somebody who, again, right or wrong or, correct or not, takes the onus to come out and say, hey, look, I screwed up and I'm going to take the accountability and the responsibility and own up to my mistakes. And I've used this as a learning experience to further make myself better as a coach and as a person. James, what do you say about Brian Flores kind of owning up to what, again, was shared by Tua Tagovailoa on Monday with Dan Le Batard?
I think Tua, ever since he came out of college, he's been thrown so many different ways. I mean, with his, injuries, and then with the change of coaches, he's just looking for someone to have his back, and he has that with Mike McDaniel. Flores, though, had so much pressure on him to tank, and then to have this young quarterback try to perform and do well. But and I watched him, 2020 beyond, when Flores was there, and he just never, ever was able to get it working with Flores. You could just tell there was a misconnection with not only Tua with Flores, but with a lot of his teammates, I think, with Brian Flores. I remember a game that they lost like 56-14, whatever it was. And right away, Micah Fitzpatrick said, I want to trade out of here. I mean, that's how bad it really, really was. And then other Dolphins left, for via trade or free agency later on. I think it was just a toxic workplace all around. And it went from one phase to another, coaching to the players, from ownership. Starts at the top, I think. So I think Tua, though, making the comments he did about Flores, he just feels that passionate about himself, about McDaniel, and about the game now because of what he went through and Flores just happened to be the one to catch the stray bullets.
Fair.
My hope is that they can get together about this and clear the air. It does make it interesting if they do get together, but um, I think hopefully just time heals all wounds in this case. Since they're in different areas now, or Flores is in a different place, and of course with his case, I think still looming. This will not go away, but it's just an interesting part in Tua Tagovailoa's career where he just got paid as well, so he's kind of feeling
Yes.
himself. He's feeling himself. He feels like he has the right coach to coach him through the darkness. And, I've admired Tua's growth the last 3 years or so, where he's gone from hating the game to loving the game because of the coaching change. So again, I just hope time heals all wounds here and they can all just move on. This can be just, a bad start to things, and, the better will come, I think, from all this.
Yeah, and I don't want to use it as an excuse, James, but you do have to kind of wonder about, the fact of Tua comes into the league in the middle of a global pandemic, and you really can't forge those relationships in person because, again, 6 feet away, so on and so forth, and that it was probably hard, I think, to kind of get everything going on the right foot because of all the parameters that were in place at that time. And, maybe there was stuff that did go on behind closed doors or on the sideline during games that Tua took exception to. And then, you bring Mike McDaniel in, and here it's like a full change of pace with how everything has gone so far with, with the Dolphins and with that. And I would agree, though, James. And I think I'm more glad, though, that it seems to me like they've already cleared the air, because I think the last thing you want to see, though, is that this becomes a full-fledged, mudslinging thing going on across, TV and radio and via social media or via the newspaper as well, or just via the media in general.
I think Brian Flores, I think he's also grown himself. Reading the comments and what you read off, I think he's grown from that experience. Maybe it was too much for him at that point, and he's found the right job right now with Minnesota. I don't know if he'll ever get a head coaching job again, but I think that's kind of, this whole thing has kind of cleared him away from that being a candidate. But, he's also gone to Pittsburgh. I think that helped him out last year, the year before, I should say. Being with Mike Tomlin, I think that's kind of grounded him in a way. So, again, I think both guys in this case are growing. I think both are growing from within their position. And again, I just think they'll get together on this and say, hey, it was an odd time. We were both in a awkward position. The coach to lose and the player to learn, but losing at the same time. It's good for, a book or a documentary or something. But I just hope both just get it all cleared up. That's all I would think.
James, yay or nay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Does Brian Flores' ongoing lawsuit, in your mind, also probably hinder him from getting a head coaching job sometime soon?
I say yes. I just
all in favor.
Yeah. I don't think he would. Just based on all this, he could have a good 5 years being a coordinator, and maybe that'll change. But where he is right now, there's a lot of issues as well. But it's on the field stuff. It's talent wise. It's not tanking.
With that, James, we are nearing, I believe we're at the end of the preseason. I think we're going to the third and final week. So, James, through 2 weeks so far, has there been any particular player or team so far who's kind of, in a way, caught your eye over the course of the preseason?
Well, the records don't mean anything.
Obviously.
But, Caleb Williams, I think, has kind of proved everyone wrong, at least for the 2 games he has started. Making some great passes and leading the team down the field. and his escapability has been amazing. Just everything he did at USC, you're kind of seeing right now. So he's been amazing. Jalen Daniels being named the Commanders' starting QB already. That also shows you that, hey, he's the best in the room. Nothing against Brissett, but Daniels is the guy going forward. He can make things happen with his legs and arm, just like Caleb Williams. Excuse me. I was going to say one off the field. That whole Jerry Jones and the Cowboys situation is just looking really bad. Every day gets, further to opening day. But on the field, I would say the biggest surprise and the one I did not want to see was Bo Nix. Has been Bo Nix. The 2 games he's played, he's been amazing. He's looked awesome. And remember, he's a guy that played, 5 years in college or 6 years in college because of the extra pandemic year. So he's been amazing. And he's been everything that the scouts have been saying about him, where he's already ready. And, he's kind of shown it with the Broncos. Again, they have Zach Wilson there, and I forget whom else, or Jarrett Stidham. They were hoping that those 2 would not start. And it looks like Bo Nix will get the starting job. And it hurts me, of course, because the Raiders were the next pick, and the Broncos got him. I'm trying to figure out, though, why Michael Penix Jr. was out for the preseason game. And he's clearly healthy. But I don't know why. Again, this goes back to Caleb Williams not playing in that first Hall of Fame game.
Correct.
How did rookies get the privilege not to play in a preseason game? That just bugs the hell out of me. I don't know why. Usually veterans like Devontae Adams is getting that. Max Crosby is getting that. Christian Wilkins is getting that of the Raiders. They're all not playing. Remember with the Chargers, LaDainian Tomlinson would never play a preseason game after a while. So those are some of the things. I think one more thing is trying to figure out the quarterback situations in Pittsburgh, because both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have not looked good. And that gets louder when you're in Pittsburgh. They were both in different places, Denver and Chicago. And both were just franchises that were in the gutter. Now you're going to Pittsburgh where they're trying to rise up again. And everybody thought Russell Wilson would be the savior. That hasn't happened. He's looked awful. And then Justin Fields has not looked
returner.
good as well. Yeah. I can't believe I heard that when that was a thing. And then with the Patriots, trying to figure out who their quarterback will be, May or someone else. So that's going to be interesting to see.
A buddy of mine who's a Pats fan said, don't count on it being Bailey Zappi.
No, it won't be that. And I know one guy who wants it to be. It won't be.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if anything else stands out, but just the main thing with the rookie quarterbacks, wherever they are, I think they've all looked really good other from a few. And that's what you want to see. Just players make their debut, and you want to see how they are. I do like what Neighbors has done with the Giants, despite having Daniel Jones as a quarterback. That's going to be an ongoing thing all year long.
As long as Neighbors is not out here throwing hands like he did it during that joint practice we talked about a week or so ago.
Anything goes in those.
As we know.
So, yeah, I'm just interested to see all the rookie QBs, and for the most part, all of them have done pretty well. Makes me wish I had one of those on the Raiders.
Yeah, James, before we move on, how you feeling about Gardner Minshew being QB1 for the Raiders?
It just doesn't matter who it is. They're both going to suck. Minshew is going to have a good 3 weeks, and he's going to have a bad 3 weeks, and he'll be replaced or benched after, week 6. And Aidan O'Connell will come in and try to, rescue the season, and he'll fail too, and Minshew will come in and just throw Hail Marys and try to make things happen. Devontae Adams will get, pissed again, and he'll want to trade to the Jets. And I could just see all this crap happening with the with the Raiders and the quarterback situation. Neither is good for the team. You just have to ride the hot hand and the experienced hand, and you just hope it is the right hand for the Raiders and Minshew. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to Minshew being the starter or O'Connell. So, we'll see what happens, but it wasn't promising when they got him for sure.
Excuse me, James. We'll now move on, my man, to the NBA regular season schedule getting dropped last week. And with that in mind, James, Kevin Pelton of ESPN.com has gone the way, my man, of giving us a pretty interesting perspective and look, I should say, of the schedule that was dropped and released just about a week or so ago. And we'll run through some of the games that Kevin Pelton has picked. We'll start, James, on opening night. Knicks and Celtics in a rematch, in a playoff rematch last season. The Clippers open up the brand spanking new Intuit Dome versus the Phoenix Suns. And then the Spurs will take on the Dallas Mavericks, while also the Suns will take on the Lakers as well. Or actually, I should say that the Lakers will take on Minnesota on opening night as well. Some must-see returns that Kevin Pelton and the group picked. Dallas and Golden State to kick off the NBA Cup tournament, sponsored by Emirates Airlines. That'll be Dallas at Golden State on November 12th. The Sixers will take on the Clippers and Paul George's return back to Los Angeles on November 6th, at 7 o'clock Pacific time. Also then Sacramento and Chicago. Of course, the Bulls sign and trade, sending DeMar DeRozan to Sacramento January 12th. And then the Nets and the Knicks will spice up their New York rivalry on November 15th at 4:30 Pacific time. And then some postseason rematches. Celtics and Mavs meet up for the first time this year, January 25th. Nuggets and Wolves on November 1st. Orlando and Cleveland also on November 1st. And then the Pacers and Knicks square off right away early in the season on October 25th. On Christmas Day, the Spurs visit the Knicks at 9 a.m. Pacific time, followed up in the midday by the Wolves and Mavericks. Philadelphia visits the Celtics at 2 o'clock Pacific time. Then it's the Lakers playing once more again on Christmas Day at Golden State at 5 o'clock, while the Nuggets and Suns close down Christmas Day at 7:30 p.m. Some other ones real quick for the Lakers. For those of you wondering, Dave McMenamin, the Lakers beat writer, picked out that that LeBron will take on Cleveland on New Year's Eve when he turns 40 that day. They will then take on the Clippers and play the Clippers for the first time the entire season, January 19th. So not even in 2024 will they play the Clippers at all until 2025 at Intuit Dome as well. Other games include a rematch versus the Nuggets on November 23rd, and some other games that do stand out as well. We'll have some other ones that do, in fact, stand out as well, which is some all-star showdowns and rookie matchups. Wizards and Hawks, a number 1 versus number 2 draft pick matchup in that game, October 28th. Grizzlies and Blazers, due to the fact that it is a national championship game return or a rematch between Zach Edey and the Memphis Grizzlies, while the Blazers boast Donovan Clingan from the UConn Huskies. And then Chet versus Wemby, year number 2, Spurs in Oklahoma City on October 30th at 6:30 in the evening. So, James, I think ESPN, my man, picked a pretty good slate of games for fans to check out and look at. But, James, maybe out of a lot of these matchups, man, what's that one game you're really looking at for the upcoming NBA season?
I think it's one you didn't mention with Klay Thompson facing the Warriors on, I think it was November 12th.
Oh, yeah, that was actually mentioned. That was the very first reunion that they mentioned. So they have Dallas, Golden State, Philly, and the Clippers, Sacramento, Chicago, and then the battle for New York between Brooklyn and the Knicks.
Yeah, seeing Mikal Bridges go from the Nets to the Knicks, where everybody wanted him to be, and the Knicks, of course, had to pay a crazy ransom.
Oh, King's ransom is right. My goodness.
To get Mikal Bridges. It was like, 5 first picks?
And by the way, James, a cool nugget from the release here from ESPN.com. That was the first New York Knick And New Jersey, New York / Brooklyn Nets trade made in 41 years.
41 years. So that's what, 83?
83.
I want to say that was Michael Ray Richardson or Bernard King, maybe? No, it wasn't Bernard King. But anyway, I always like those old trades because, I would try to guess it there. But, excuse me. Excuse me. Klay Thompson going back to the Bay. That's obviously going to be the big one because he meant so much to them. And remember, he wasn't received as well because the fans there loved Monte Ellis. Remember, the new owner was booed on Chris Mullins' retirement jersey night.
Yes.
Because they made the Ellis trade for what would come out to be Klay Thompson. And look what happened. They won, 4 championships together, the Splash Brothers. And you kind of knew that it had to break up. They had to break up eventually. I thought Draymond Green was going to be the first one gone, but he's outlasted, Klay. It was kind of weird that, Dre isn't gone yet.
James? Len Elmore was acquired by the Knicks from the New Jersey Nets in 1983. That was the last trade made until Mikal Bridges got dealt this offseason.
Len Elmore, he's great on CBS when he did March Madness games.
Well, that was the last trade that was made between the Knicks and wherever they were with the Nets.
New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey. I think there was a rumor back then. Dr. J had to be sold in order for the Nets to get in the NBA from the ABA. And there was a rumor that he was going to be traded to the Knicks. Instead, he went to the Sixers. Also, it was going to be the Hawks as well. So it'd been funny how history would have gone. And then, you talk about Paul George coming back to the Clippers. You think about the renderings of Intuit Dome, right? And it had Paul George all over the damn place with Kawhi. Had the new uniforms revealed during last season.
We talked about those on the show.
Paul George is in the red jersey. And he's gone. And the Clippers traded all that to Oklahoma City for him. And you see what Oklahoma City's doing. I think he'll be booed by those Clipper fans just because they don't know any better. They know for stars that have left the Clippers and gone to other places, that's all they know. Their best player ever, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. They've all been traded elsewhere. And it's always been a weird time when the player has come back. I can think of Blake Griffin running off the court in practice when Steve Ballmer came to shake his hand. And Blake sees him and he runs off to the tunnel like only Blake can do. Chris Paul with that weird time he was with the Rockets and they got together on MLK Day and there wasn't a lot of peace going on. So we'll see how that ends up at the new Intuit Dome. You mentioned, I watched 2 out of the 4 games that they played each other, but Chet and Wemby,
yes,
the Thunder and the Spurs. I love what that could potentially become. I love that Chris Paul will be with Wemby. The alley-oops are endless. That's going to be fun. And then learning the game as well from Chris Paul and having Coach Pop there with Wemby, going to learn even more. And then he, remember, had the silver medal finalist. Yeah, against Team USA. So he's only going to get better. So I can't wait for that. I'm not going to think much about the DeRozan thing in Chicago just because.
Same. I mean, that was kind of just probably thrown in there. I get it, but it's what did Chicago went to the playoffs once while he was there? Yeah,
they didn't do anything with him, and he'll have a tribute. Everybody has a tribute video.
Pretty much. I mean, you're not lying. Pretty much.
James Harden will be back in Philly on the 24th when the Clippers go there. DeJounte Murray returning back to Atlanta. Remember that was I think a 3-way deal going to New Orleans, I want to say. I don't know what else, but um, Dame Dollar going to Portland. I think that was the only national televised game the Blazers had last year. Was when Dame went back to Portland as a Buck. And I think Portland's the only team this year that doesn't have a national televised game, like not even NBA TV as of what is scheduled right now, I should say. Westbrook taking on the Lakers, Nuggets, Lakers. That's always fun to see because you know the Laker fans hate him and the Lakers hate him, so that'll be something. Kyrie going back to Brooklyn, the Mavericks and the Nets. I don't think Kyrie is. Man, yeah, I don't remember the response of him going back to Brooklyn, but that whole time was toxic with Kyrie and KD and Harden all together in Brooklyn playing
Just
for.
you remember the guy who said that that team wasn't going to win a championship.
That's why I kind of mentioned that. Josh Giddey. This will be the last one. Josh Giddey going back to OKC. Remember, he was traded to the Bulls. It seemed like he was
problems too.
He was always the main guy to be outcasted by his teammates. There was a big photo with old teammates on another team that came over, and Giddey was trying to get in on the side. It was kind of awkward. Plus, what happened, during the season off the court. I want to see what kind of revenge he has in store, or if he's a non-factor. But you kind of knew he was the piece that was going to be ousted for something. You just kind of knew because, Shea has to handle the ball to make things happen. Also, Chet does that as well. Yeah, a lot of games are not really. Wemby at MSG, that'll be fun. I know last year was pretty good too, but not much else. I think the Lakers, by the way, I think get 39 out of their 82 games on national TV this year.
It's like 38 or 39. It's pretty. It's pretty close to like half of the games.
Yeah, and I think the second most, I think, is like 30 or less. By the way, so LA still has that draw. I guess after that, it's not too much I would watch. Just see Intuit, opening and just how the Knicks do this year against the Pacers. I think that's going to be fun. Every time
start that rivalry, baby, let's go.
Every time Toppin came back to MSG, that was fun. And that playoff rivalry will just continue to skyrocket. That'll be fun. That's the one. I think Chet and Wemby, and then the Pacers Knicks. I think those are the two series to watch out of the whole season when they play each other.
Yeah, James, you said about homecomings. I'm eager to see the Warrior fan reaction to when Clay comes back to Chase Center with Dallas in mid to early November on November 12th. Now, again, Clay had his comments saying he felt miserable and felt disrespected over his contract talks with Golden State, per the report written on ESPN.com. But I think, though, James, when an organization says that when you leave that your number is going to be retired, I mean, I would hope that happens right then and there and like get it out of the way kind of in a way, but I know that won't happen though. But I'll be eager to see though if there is like a mixed reaction or if they will, give him a standing ovation, if he gets on the mic maybe and says, hey, thank you all for your support over 13 years. I mean, you never know what they may in fact do. And then probably after that, once he makes his first three, they'll start booing him like they boo every other person. So I'll go Dallas and Golden State. And also it starts Callan McClurg's best thing in the NBA. The in-season tournament gets underway with that matchup on November 12th. So, of course, I'm going to be very enthused by that because I love the IST. Other than that, I mean, maybe kind of rekindle some interest in some of the playoff matchups. I really, James, want to see this Minnesota team play a lot more on national TV. I really am intrigued by Anthony Edwards. I know he's your dude. And them with the upset of the year last season, knocking out Denver in the conference semifinals before they faltered to Dallas. That'll be a fun one to watch. I'm all into on Indiana and the Knicks as well, just with that budding rivalry. But also, James, I do want to see like some of those fresh-faced kids. Like, I know that Memphis and Portland won't be that great, but it's a rematch between Zach Edey from Purdue and Donovan Clingan from UConn. Like, I kind of want to see like these future kids of the NBA play each other at the, at Moda Center. on November 10th. And then, maybe if anything, I feel like, James, it just feels a little, and this may be stupid, but I believe that the Lakers play in Philadelphia like a day or two after the sad anniversary of Kobe's death, like for the third year in a row. Like, I do think that the NBA needs to kind of, and again, this may sound stupid, but I think, though, you can't send Kobe's franchise to his hometown like days after the unfortunate anniversary of his death. Like, that one is just like a little bit like kind of off the board in this whole entire thing. But I think, though, that this is going to be a very interesting season. And also, James, I love NBA on Christmas Day. I think they have some very good matchups on Christmas Day. Spurs and Knicks, that'll be interesting. The conference final rematch between the Wolves and Mavericks, Sixers and Celtics, longtime rivalry. Lakers playing on Christmas Day for like the 40th year in a row. And then even Denver playing Phoenix. So there's a lot of good stuff on the NBA schedule. James, I think you're going to respond to something.
Before I get to that, the Denver and Phoenix last year on Christmas, that was the 7.
That was the late night game, like it is again this year.
That game was fun. It had a.
Let's hope it carries over to this year too.
There was an Aaron Gordon 2-hand poster on someone that I still remember watching and yelling because I couldn't believe I saw it. It was amazing last year. And that game went down to the wire. I think the Nuggets held on to win. But, yeah, you're talking about the Lakers always having to go to Philly during that time. It makes me think of January 25th of 2020.
Yeah.
When the Lakers went there, I think they lost, but LeBron got a plateau in his points or something. I think he passed Kobe on the points list of all time. And then the next morning happened. Right. And I always remember that, just the two events intertwining within those hours. And it's just the way the road trip is with the Lakers, going out east because of the Grammy trip. So, that'll be another thing too with the Clippers now. Since they don't have to be in Staples anymore, they're at their own place. They don't have to do anything about a Grammy trip or anything like that. So I'm interested to see how their schedule comes out, the Clippers, where they don't have to worry about that anymore. Like, they don't have to worry about a rodeo trip that San Antonio has to go through.
The circus trip that the Bulls go on.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that too.
Don't forget the circus trip.
What was it? So it kind of reminds me of when the Clippers were at the sports arena in LA, where, for the first time in a while, you're going to have both LA teams playing the same night at the Forum and then at the sports arena. So, and it's always awkward too now with the Clippers playing in Inglewood. That's going to be weird, and the Forum's just right down the street.
No longer a sporting venue, though, sadly, folks. All concerts.
Right. So, yeah, just little things I'm going to have to get used to.
But again, folks, NBA schedule came out last week. Some good, intriguing matchups on the radar. James, there was a very interesting other NBA story I caught wind of, I believe, from Bleacher Report, where LeBron's agent, Rich Paul of Clutch Sports, told a reporter that I think, James, we remember that there was some chitter-chatter that there was a potential trade on the table to send LeBron James out of Los Angeles last season at the deadline to the Golden State Warriors. But per the report I saw, James, the headline caught my attention. Rich Paul said, no, we're not making this trade. And I thought it was a very interesting dynamic or like wrench thrown in there. Rich Paul claimed to have said, you're not making this trade because people already rip my client as much as is already for him hopping teams. I don't want my client playing for a fourth team in his career to let this entire NBA fan base get more and more upset at him, like supposedly going, chasing another ring somewhere else. So, James, I thought it was a very interesting dynamic because I know that framework was in place. Like, the deal was like pretty dang close to happening. But, James, what do you think about Rich Paul stepping in and maybe in a way kind of, protecting LeBron's integrity with that potential trade that got wiped off the board at the last minute?
Yeah, I was just reading about this, and I didn't even know it was going on, or went on, I should say. But I think there was a rumor, but it was quickly taken down. But this was like 3 years ago, I want to say, where there was rumors that LeBron was going to go to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Instead, I think he went to the Lakers. I think, first of all, Rich Paul did not want him going from Southern California to Northern California, just because of everything LeBron is into, with the TV, music and radio, or not radio, but movie business.
Podcasting with his head
Yeah.
coach.
So
Who would have thunk that? My goodness.
so now you get a head coaching job off of it. I think agents now, they're too powerful, and Rich Paul's just too powerful for the league. This is where I wish David Stern was around. He would knock all this off so fast, so quick. That's where the Ab Silver has just lost it all. The players walk all over him. The agents walk all over him. Just awful. But yeah, I see he was opposed to this, adamantly opposed, because of LeBron's legacy. Did not want another movement to, let's just say, another big 2 or 3. Did not want his client to go on a second fiddle on Stephen Curry's team. I think that would be another issue where
Without a doubt.
He didn't want his
Great
client
point.
not to be the big player of the team. That would have been fun, because you would have had LeBron shooting threes and Curry shooting threes. It would take turns. Defensively, they would be pretty good. But I think just location would have been the thing. And then the legacy, because he already left Cleveland twice. Miami was college, and then LA's just been a business venture. And LeBron, like you mentioned, would turn 40 this season, and he wouldn't want, his client to go change teams being that old, even though he's playing like he's still pretty young. I think all that backlash would have been the issue. And even though they played great together on the Olympics, it's just not a thing, I think, to do when it counts in the NBA. Plus, it would hurt the Lakers in a way too. The fact that they had a trade in place, I think, kind of hurts maybe the relationship between Buss and LeBron a little bit, just because it's out there. It could have happened.
Yeah,
But
it's noted that the blueprint was in place, like I said, for the trade to be made.
But then LeBron got paid, and I think everything's okay. That National Happy Women's Day thing went off. I think they're fine. But that would have been an odd sight. But I also think Rich Paul doesn't want LeBron to end up being kind of like Kevin Durant as well, where we've seen him go to the Warriors and win there, but then not win anywhere else. Again, it would hurt LeBron's legacy if he joined on another big 3 when he has his own kind of, duo there in LA. So I guess lucky it didn't happen, but it just shows you how powerful Rich Paul is with LeBron and how much it's hurting the league possibly. It's kind of good, though, that this trade didn't happen, because you want to see what Curry does by himself, and then you don't want to see LeBron go to another team. Well, I wouldn't mind it, but it would hurt his legacy a little bit. People saying, "Oh, why does he keep leaving places when it gets hard or when he doesn't win? Why does he keep doing that?" And Curry just keeps staying where he is. And then all I could imagine, what the Warriors would have to give up, and not Draymond Green, because that's one of his friends, and not Curry, but everybody else would be gone. And you would have a situation like in Miami where you have a big 3, and then you have like rookies or vet minimum players coming in, having to buy in, and not only playing for that. So that would have been interesting to see with the Warriors if that happened. But luckily, this never happened.
So again, folks, very interesting development there. Again, there was a trade in place for the Lakers and Warriors to get LeBron James out of LA to San Francisco, but Rich Paul stepped in and said, we're protecting his legacy and we're not going to make this trade whatsoever. With that, James, a couple of hockey headlines real quick, man. Offer sheets are the talk of the NHL world. The St. Louis Blues were able to pry away two Edmonton Oilers role players in Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway to 2-year contracts on Tuesday because, James, the Oilers were stuck in salary cap hell and could not match the offer sheets for these two impending RFAs. Broberg signed for $9.16 million, while Holloway got $4.58 million, and St. Louis sent off a second and third round draft pick to the Oilers for compensation. The salary cap strapped Oilers opted not to keep their two youngest players even after clearing space by dealing away veteran Cody Ceci to the Sharks for young defenseman Ty Emberson earlier this week. They had a week to make the decision after St. Louis GM Doug Armstrong made the bold moves of signing Broberg and Holloway to the offer sheets, something that has become increasingly rare around the NHL over the last 10 years. In perspective, the last time that a offer sheet was signed was by Jesper Kotkaniemi in 2021 with Carolina, 2 years after Montreal tried to acquire Sebastian Aho from the Carolina Hurricanes with the same method. Before Broberg, Holloway, and Kotkaniemi, the last offer sheet not match was for Dustin Penner back in 2007. James, we hear a lot about offer sheets in the NBA, or we do actually, folks. Sadly, did lose James while I was reading that story. But with that, folks, in mind, though, again, this is very uncharted territory that we have seen a offer sheet or offer sheets be given out and no one able to match here. But where the Oilers were last season, again, a lot of that money is tied up, though, with the likes of Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Then they also tacked on some salary with Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick coming over in trades with Anaheim at the trade deadline. But there was just a lot of money scattered across this entire organization at this rate, and there was no way for Edmonton to match that salary between what Broberg was making, again, young dynamic defenseman, Dylan Holloway, also young forward, 2-year contracts for that much, average annual value. No way that a franchise who is right now at that cap or exceeding that cap is going to make that kind of offer. And I don't think this is as much of a blow to the Oilers as a lot of people may project. But again, it was, though, maybe mainly with their play in the postseason, though, with both Broberg and also Holloway having clutch moments in games, whether it was shorthanded goals, power play goals, or just helping out in some capacity across the board. And this is definitely one part of the storyline here. But again, you really just don't see offer sheets getting matched, and that they don't really utilize them at this rate. So again, folks, it is right now once more Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway officially, because the clock ran out on the Edmonton Oilers, have declined. The Oilers have declined to match the offer sheets from the Blues for both Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway to 2-year contracts after Edmonton could not match the offers for the two impending restricted free agents. Broberg again signed for a $9.16 million deal and a $4.58 million deal for Dylan Holloway. Both those guys are on their way to the St. Louis Blues from the Edmonton Oilers. One other small note real quick in pro hockey. That comes, folks, from the Seattle Kraken, who've locked up their first ever pick in franchise history. Matty Beniers got paid a 7-year deal for $50 million with an average annual value of $7.14 million, which locks in Seattle's cornerstone piece for the franchise's future. Beniers, who's 21 years old, was the first ever draft pick, number 2 overall, as the team came in to the NHL in 2021. The center debuted later in that inaugural campaign after a 2-year stint at the University of Michigan, appearing in 10 NHL games with 3 goals and 9 points, and also soared further from there in the 2022-23 season when his 24 goals and 57 points in 80 games earned Beniers a Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie. His deal will carry an average annual value of $7.14 million with 42 goals and 103 points in 167 total games played with the new upstart Seattle Kraken franchise. This kid's dynamic. This kid is special. This kid is very fun to watch. And I also think, folks, it's very important too. For a franchise who's still just starting out here with Seattle, again, they're going to be 4 or 5 years deep. This, in a way, draws a parallel to me of Paul Kariya signing in Anaheim in 1993, entering the 94 season out of the University of Maine, where it's that hot shot big name who's going to a brand new franchise to get this new team up and running and kind of start them in the right direction. Now Seattle's been kind of wonky. They've been up, they've been down. They were down their first season, made a bit of a deep little playoff run their second time around, and then had a major regression in year 3. Then they also forced out Dave Haxtell after the season concluded and brought back in former longtime NHL player and head coach and their AHL affiliate head coach and Dan Bleisma for the upcoming season. Seattle went 34, 35, and 13 last season, but again, they literally were just a year removed from the postseason a year prior. But having a player like Beniers in place now, on top of a very energetic young core right now in their minor league affiliate in Coachella Valley, and a lot of bruising veterans, Yanni Gord, for example, Jordan Eberle, who's really, hit his stride in Seattle. This, though, is the main puzzle piece that now you can really build around more. And I think, though, as more time goes on, this club will get better. Again, this is a franchise just starting out a couple years, into their existence after coming into the league in 2021. But being able to get a young kid like Beniers locked up, though, for the long haul, $7 million cap hit for those next 7 years is not that much of an overreach at this rate. But again, Matty Beniers re-signing with the Seattle Kraken, a 7-year extension for Beniers, $50 million with a 7.14 AAV with that. Moving, folks, quickly, we did lose James, sadly, folks. He literally sent me a text saying that his power has gone out at his home up in Oceanside, California, so we will catch James on our next program. A couple of quick notes, though, folks, as well, real quick, that we were not able to get to tonight on the program. Alabama, college football news real quick, landed the number 2 top-ranked running back from the upcoming class of 2025. You probably saw as well, though, folks, that Oklahoma State will be adding QR codes for NIL reasons onto the back of their helmets this upcoming season. I'll have more about that story on Press Row probably tomorrow, if not on Thursday. I'm set to work on Thursday in the evening, but we could, in fact, folks, have our program on Wednesday or also on Thursday. With that, folks, I wanted to quickly as well go off the board and give a quick shout out as well to Sam Levitt, who right now has been a Padre pregame show and postgame show host, a contributor to the Padres flagship radio station, KWFN 97.3 The Fan. I've also worked with Sam indirectly at the University of San Diego. Sam got to call his first 2 Major League Baseball games for the Padres on the radio, both on Monday and Tuesday night against the Twins. Sam's had a great, long, sustained journey in baseball from the minor leagues. It's one of those great feel-good stories of a guy who's worked his way from the minor leagues to the pros. Now he's been doing content for the Padres radio station, pregame show hosting, postgame show hosting, contributing to the Monday morning talk shows here on the station. Now he finally got that, got his chance in the sunlight to call a couple of games. So, Sam, congratulations, my man, and keep up the good work for the Pods and on KWFN 97.3 The Fan. With that, folks, we'll cut it. We will cut out of here for the night. Again, due to the fact that we lost James because of a power outage up in his neck of the woods. Big shout out, though, to my good man, Brent DeMoss, for writing in tonight. And thanks to all of our viewers who joined us here on C2C at night on this Tuesday now into Wednesday morning. At this rate, we'll see you folks back here. We're working on our schedule, folks, for next week. We'll have more about that probably on Press Row or on Sports Minute on Wednesday, folks. Until next time, for James Gonzales, Cal McClurg, saying good day, good night, and good morning if you're joining us here still. But a very pleasant good night, folks, and thanks again for joining us here. We'll see you folks back here on Sports Minute for sure on Wednesday, folks. Until next time, have a good one. Bye-bye.